You're sitting at the lights, windows up, radio low, nothing unusual about the morning. Then a shadow rolls up beside you, a dual commute, jacked up, paint so glossy it looks wet, wheels that cost more than your last holiday. The door swings open. You're expecting someone who's clearly doing well for themselves. A business owner maybe, or someone a few pay grades above you. Instead, out steps a guy in a high-vis shirt, thermos in hand, heading into a job site like it's just another Tuesday. And that's when the math starts running in your head, whether you want it to or not. That Ute is worth more than most people's car and half their savings combined. It's the kind of number that would make most households flinch. So how, on an ordinary wage, doing an ordinary job, does someone drive that off the lot? Is he secretly better off than he looks? Is he quietly stretched thin behind the scenes? Or is there something happening in the background, some financial mechanism most of us have never been shown, that makes a $70,000 vehicle look almost normal? Stick around, because the answer isn't one thing, it's three. And once you see how they fit together, you'll never look at traffic the same way again. Here's the strange part, this isn't a one-off. Drive through any outer suburb, any regional town, any tradie heavy car park on a Saturday morning, and you'll see the same thing repeated dozens of times over. Utes that used to be work tools, dented, dusty, built to get bashed around a job site, have quietly become something else entirely. Leather seats, digital dashboards, premium sound systems, price tags that would have bought a small family home in plenty of towns not that long ago. And the people driving them aren't all business owners or high-income professionals. Plenty of them are on award wages. Apprentices, tradespeople, admin staff, shift workers, the exact demographic that, on paper, shouldn't be able to casually absorb a $70,000 purchase at all. So either wages have quietly caught up with vehicle prices, which, spoiler, they haven't, or something in the system has changed. Something in how these vehicles get priced, financed, and justified that most buyers never fully see until they've already signed. To understand it, we need to start with the vehicles themselves. Because the story of how they got this expensive is almost as strange as the story of how people keep buying them. Rewind 15 years, and a dual commute was about as glamorous as a wheelbarrow. It hauled tools, towed trailers, got covered in mud, and nobody expected it to look good doing it. A base model HiLux or Ranger back then would set you back somewhere in the low 30,000s. It was transport, nothing more. Fast forward to today, and the top spec versions of those same nameplates, the Toyota HiLux, the Ford Ranger, the Isuzu D-Max, have transformed into something closer to a well-appointed SUV wearing a tradie's uniform. We're talking heated seats, adaptive cruise control, premium sound systems, twin-turbo engines, and badge names like Wildtrak, Rogue, or X-Terrain stitched across the tailgate like a status announcement. Drive-away pricing on these top-tier builds now regularly climbs toward and past $70,000 once accessories and dealer add-ons are factored in. Now put that number next to the average full-time wage in Australia, and it's clear that dropping close to a year's take-home pay on a single vehicle isn't something most household budgets are built to absorb comfortably. If you tried to save for one of these outright using spare income alone, you'd be looking at years of disciplined saving with nothing else going wrong along the way. And yet these vehicles aren't rare, they're everywhere, which raises the real question this video is built around. It's not, can people afford these Utes? For most, in the traditional cash-in-hand sense, the answer is clearly no. The real question is, what mechanism is quietly making the difficult look effortless? And the first piece of that puzzle isn't hiding in a bank account. It's hiding in the tax code. Here's where a lot of the mystery starts to unravel. Because a huge chunk of these tricked-out Utes aren't actually being bought the way a normal person buys a car. They're being bought through a business. If someone holds an Australian business number, even as a sole trader, the rules around vehicle purchases shift dramatically. Utes with a payload over 1 ton are typically classified as commercial vehicles, which means they can sidestep fringe benefits tax entirely, a tax that would otherwise apply if a business bought someone a flashy passenger car for personal use. On top of that, instant asset write-off schemes have, at various points, allowed business owners to deduct a large portion of a vehicle's cost in the same financial year it was purchased, dramatically softening the real after-tax price. In practice, that means a $70,000 Ute bought through a legitimate business structure might genuinely cost the buyer noticeably less than the sticker suggests once tax time rolls around. It's not a scam. It's not even a secret. Accountants recommend it constantly to tradies, contractors, and small operators. It's simply a different rulebook, one that ordinary pagey employees, paid a wage with tax withheld before it even hits their account, don't have access to. So when you see an electrician or a landscaper step out of a decked-out ute, there's a real chance you're not looking at reckless spending. You might be looking at someone who understands the tax system better than the person judging them from the next lane. But that only explains one slice of what's happening on our roads, because plenty of these buyers aren't running a business at all. They're regular employees, and for them, the road into a near six-figure vehicle runs through a very different and much riskier set of numbers. This is where things get genuinely uncomfortable, because this is the mechanism hiding in plain sight on almost every dealership finance brochure. And it's built specifically to make an unaffordable vehicle feel affordable, at least for a while. It's called a balloon payment, and it works by restructuring the loan so that a large chunk of the vehicle's value, often $20,000, $30,000, even $40,000, isn't paid off during the loan term at all. Instead, it's pushed to the very end as one large final payment. That structural trick is exactly what turns a $70,000 ute into weekly repayments that sound almost reasonable. The salesperson isn't lying when they quote you a manageable weekly figure. They're just not leading with the part where a chunk of that vehicle's cost hasn't actually been paid off. It's being postponed. Over a typical 5-year, 60-month contract, that means someone can drive a genuinely well-spec'd vehicle for years while only ever budgeting for a fraction of its real cost. It feels sustainable. It feels smart even, right up until month 60, when the finance company calls and the number they quote isn't a weekly figure anymore. It's the whole remaining balloon due in full. At that point, there are really only a few options, and none of them are particularly comfortable. Refinance the balloon into a brand new loan and start the clock again on interest. Trade the vehicle in and hope its resale value covers what's owed. Or find a lump sum most households simply don't have sitting around. And here's the part that makes it feel so deceptively easy in the moment. Dealership finance is often designed to get someone behind the wheel today, with the hard conversation about tomorrow scheduled for 5 years down the track, long after the excitement of the new car smell has worn off. So now we've seen the legal loophole, and we've seen the financial sleight of hand. But neither of those fully explains the desire in the first place. Why does everyone want this particular vehicle so badly that they're willing to structure their entire financial life around getting one? A generation ago, if you wanted to signal that you'd made it, the formula was simple. A European sedan, leather seats, a badge on the grille that everyone recognized, parked proudly in the driveway of a freshly mortgaged house. That was the language of success. Somewhere along the way, that language changed dialects. The modern Australian status symbol isn't a sedan anymore. It's a dual cabute, jacked up, tricked out, and photographed at a campsite on a Sunday with a drone shot for the socials. It projects a very specific image: capable, outdoorsy, hard-working during the week, adventurous on the weekend. It says you can tow a boat, tackle a four-wheel drive track, and still look sharp doing the school run on Monday morning. Marketing has leaned into that shift hard, selling not just a vehicle but a lifestyle. Campfire nights, remote beaches, mates and eskies in the tray. It's aspirational in a way the old luxury sedan never quite managed to be for the average Australian household, because it doesn't feel like corporate wealth. It feels like earned, hands-on success. Blue-collar aspiration wrapped in leather trim. And that's precisely what makes it so psychologically powerful and so financially risky. Because when a status symbol stops looking like extravagance and starts looking like a completely normal choice for someone in your exact job, the social pressure to keep up becomes almost invisible. Nobody feels like they're competing for status, they just feel like they're buying a decent ute. But underneath that shiny paintwork and lifestyle marketing sits a financial structure a lot more fragile than it appears. And that fragility is where this story takes its sharpest turn. Every new vehicle starts losing value the moment it leaves the dealership, and heavily optioned utes are no exception. Depreciation on these top-spec models can strip away a significant chunk of their value within the first few years, which means someone making repayments on the original $70,000 price could easily owe more than the ute is actually worth on the used market. That gap has a name: negative equity, and it turns what looked like an asset into a liability sitting on the driveway. Layer rising interest rates on top of that picture, and the fragility deepens further. Most of these loans are written on variable rates, which means the weekly repayment that looked comfortable when it was signed can climb significantly if rates move upward during the loan term, squeezing household budgets that were often already stretched thin to afford the vehicle in the first place. And when wages don't move as fast as interest rates or living costs, something has to give. That's part of why voluntary vehicle surrenders and repossession activity tend to rise during periods of financial pressure, people handing keys back or having them taken back when the balloon payment or the monthly repayment finally becomes impossible to sustain. It's not a dramatic collapse most people see happen. It plays out quietly, one household at a time, usually well away from the traffic lights where the whole story began. Which brings us back to that original moment, the ordinary worker stepping out of the $70,000 Ute. By now, you can probably see there isn't one single explanation. Sometimes it's smart tax structuring through a genuine business. Sometimes it's a balloon payment quietly ticking down toward a very expensive deadline. And sometimes it's simply the pull of a status symbol that's become so normalized, the risk attached to it barely registers anymore. So, three forces. A tax system that rewards business structuring in ways ordinary employees can't access. A finance industry that's mastered the art of making unaffordable things feel affordable, one deferred payment at a time. And a culture that quietly redefined what success is supposed to look like, one dual cab at a time. None of that means every driver of a well-spec Ute is in financial trouble. Plenty are running the numbers exactly right, using legitimate business advantages the way they're intended to be used. But it does mean the vehicle in the next lane tells you almost nothing about the financial reality behind the wheel. It could be smart structuring. It could be a ticking balloon payment. You genuinely can't tell from the outside, and that's the whole point. What you can control is your own math, your own choices, your own definition of what a decent life actually requires, separate from whatever's currently rolling down the freeway next to you. Because the moment you stop measuring your progress against someone else's driveway is the moment traffic stops feeling like a competition and starts feeling like nothing more than the drive home. So next time a $70,000 Ute pulls up beside you, you won't wonder how they afford it. You'll already know the three most likely answers. And that, more than any vehicle badge, is real financial peace of mind. If you spotted vehicle pricing madness like this in your own city or town, drop it in the comments. Chances are you're not the only one who's noticed.